Well, welcome everyone to another Traders Community Podcast. It is another week gone. Volatile session. Volatile week, really. Particularly, we tend to specialize in energy. So lots happening there. We're going to talk about that. And also, the last few days, as you know, or actually just before the close yesterday, a lot of movement in marijuana stocks or pot stocks, whatever you want to call them. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the bond market. And I think that's pretty well it, right? That's a fair bit to cover. So we're going to get into it. We've got the glorious Madavi here, who's had a big week. Particularly is well versed in those stocks we talked about. And Meta Johnny with another big week for crypto coming back this week, pretty strongly closing, I think, over 44,000 Bitcoin. He's going to talk about the merge that's you're probably all familiar with Ethereum and Bitcoin. So remember, we're not here to give financial advice, so don't take it as such. We are just older, experienced traders sharing our wisdom or lack of. But seriously, what we see in the markets and what the fellow professional traders across funds and banks and what we look at, what we see, and what we try to take advantage of. So without further ado, welcome everyone. Let's get into it, shall we? So let me just turn off that. So to end the week, we see WTI at 112.65. We see the S&P 500 45.45. The Russell over 2,000. It was the only index that closed down this week at 2,077. Natural gas, strong week, as we all saw, broke up on that daily pennant. So close at 5.55 on the Henry Hub. Nasdaq 14.75. And volatility closed down towards the low of the week at 23.62. So if we look at, I guess go through the numbers first before we get into it. So you can see the pattern is basically no fear. We have bond markets getting wrecked, meaning higher interest rates, right? We've got a war that isn't improving. We've got inflation that isn't improving. Yet there appears to be just constant buying. So futures-wise, it pretty well broke, and we're going to continue a little bit more. We're just going to go through the numbers real quick. So on the futures, we saw it break that daily and weekly, so we've had a bullish bias through the week. After Monday and Tuesday, we gave it, if you recall, we gave it a chance to break down. It didn't, so it was kind of choppy to trade futures. After that's been pretty straightforward. So on the week, Nasdaq closed up 2%, Dow plus 0.3%, S&P 1.8%, and the Russell, the small cap, which had been the leader the week before, after that death cross call by a lot of the dribblers, actually closed down this week. The Treasuries today, and you need to take note of this because what's happened is it's the old buy stock, sell bonds is going on rather than fear or safe haven. So US Treasury sold across the curve with the belly of the curve the hardest hit. The 10-year hit 2.5% today. Remember, that's the benchmark mark. And I saw German bonds, or the Bund, go positive yields for the first time in a long time. So securities all closed near the high yields of the day, and the 2-year is 2.9. So you had Bank of America, Citibank all calling for higher yields. Now, of course, a Monday a week ago, these guys were all telling you the end of the world. So do yourself a favor, don't listen to these shops, right? But, you know, it's not just the dribblers aren't just on wannabes. They're actually, a lot of them are analysts that basically aren't traders, okay? So be aware of that. As far as energy was, another strong day, up 2.3%. Strong week there. Crude was down at the start and then turned positive with talks of a Saudi oil field getting attacked by drones. There was more talk of a release from the strategic reserve. Chevron was up strongly, which helped the complex and helped the Dow. That was up $3, but that was based on its got clearance to resume Operation Venezuela. Whether they will is another thing. So crude, WTI finished up $113 at 83. It was up 10.5 for the week. Marijuana stocks, which we're going to talk about, continued their rally from yesterday. Tilray was the leader there, and that's all to do with next Thursday, I think it is. There's a vote on whether to legalize marijuana federally. Many states already have it legal. So we're going to go through all those stocks. So there's a rundown and all that on the website. We're not going to bore you too much with that. Do yourself a favor, have a look at it. Gold settled $8 lower, but it was up more than 1% for the week. Silver closed down today. Bitcoin was unchanged at 44,504 on the futures. All the other good stuff's there. Asia closed. Japan was the strongest for the week, up 4.9%. Australian index was up 1.6%. They were the two strong ones. The Chinese got smashed as Madavi, as you know, did really good on that all week, selling those Chinese ADRs. And the rest of it's on there. So let's get into the stock, shall we? Well, we start off with the SPUs. So on the weekly, remember, we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. So hopefully everyone did well. We closed last week right at the Cajun. We tested the 50 on Monday and Tuesday. That's what made us keep it tight. Then once it held that, it's been pretty well straight up. So we closed nicely up on the weekly. On the daily, see, it's where you have a plan, punters. So down here was a beautiful double bottom. So we got most of this. This is where I got choppy, as you know. So you shouldn't be buying here. You should be buying here with a plan, right? So that's why we say be wary. And this is what the good shops look at. I read that there's people all short down here. Well, the people I know pretty well were short here and started buying in here with stops all below here, right? Here's where it got messy. Shorting, buying, shorting, as we've talked about. But we close over that daily cloud. But really, you don't wait for this. There's so many people, try to make out they know this stuff. It's all part of here, right? And you have these accelerations, and it's all part of it. So I think we all pretty well know to be wary of the dribbler out there. Particularly if you're smaller, be wary who you follow and listen to on different things. So that kind of our job is to steer you wary of that lot. Try not to. So there we have on the Dow. Remember, it held inside that megaphone very nicely, and we closed right at the 50. So not above it like the other ones. So that's pretty well. Use this roadmap for your SPUs and Dow. If you're day trading it, this is what we look at, 240 down, and you can see it just powered up through the tanking all week. This is where it got messy yesterday and today. It was yesterday, right? It did that false breakdown, and we managed to get that and remember, a lot of these moves are really just happening in the last 10 minutes. And then today it tested that tanking twice, and we close up around the high. So pretty straightforward stuff. Let me just check this message. And then we're going to talk Nasdaq with the glorious one. Okie doke, got that. So let's move on to the Nasdaq, mate. There we go. So what do you want to start off with? The
Nasdaq, the open was actually pretty
What the
good, I
heck is
believe. But
this?
there was a little down ticking. Where's the open at? Is this Nasdaq over here?
Yeah, sorry, I clicked on something and it brought up the weather report and some TV to
Uh,
watch. So yeah, so you want a short-term one, a 5-minute one? There you go.
yeah, fine.
There you,
Go on for the open.
yeah, so the open was so we sold off up here. There we go.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
so
open.
long. I didn't do very many trades in it. I caught that sell off for a nice trade. Then I started getting chopped around after that. So when I started getting chopped, that nice sell off I caught in the morning, that's where I made good amount of money. Then I got chopped around. Basically, was about to give it all back. Then I stopped. Then I came back for the close. I tried to short it, and I seen it was picking up strength. And on that last, so I chopped myself back down, basically, I don't know, down a little bit. And on that last move up is basically where I completed my day up green. In the like I
This one
said,
here, yeah.
future hasn't been great lately.
Yeah, so that again was that, just like the Spurs, we had that hedge fund stuff going on for the weekly close. So just keep in mind, a lot of funds basically buy or sell in the first 10 minutes and then close it out at the end of the day. So a lot of them are technical that trade off similar stuff to what we do, Nova Wave, like time and price, or simple what do you call it? Moving average and stuff. Buy it back in that last 10 minutes if they're short or they add to it.
It was a weird day because the Nasdaq was negative, and the S&P and I think the Russell were positive.
Yeah, and well,
So
I thought what I found hard as far as I spent most of the time in energy and then we spent marijuana at the start of the morning and we got on the marijuana at the end of the morning. Doesn't sound right, does it? We didn't.
yeah,
We weren't on the bong in the morning and on the
so,
afternoon. So yeah, we'll talk about that when we'll look at that individually, Tilray, because that was Madavi's a bit of a master of Tilray, so we'll have him go through that when we get to it. But one thing I found difficult, because as you recall, I was really bullish Apple last week, bought all those 160 calls, and then I thought, wow, this is getting crazy, and it's gone up another. I guess $7 or $5 since what I thought, and some, right? So today they what was it? They in the EU they got found guilty, and they have to share basically their information. Is a broad stroke. You probably want to look it up better. So that helped sell off, and then Apple actually went positive despite all that. So I still hold them a theory of the carry trade influencing a lot of this stuff, right? The quality. So the quality would be Apple, energy, stuff like that. It doesn't. I'm not saying they're fairly priced, but if you're a bank and you're able to do that carry trade, and you're getting free money from the Fed and free on the currency play, right? Yen versus the Aussie dollar has been relentless versus the yen, so that tells you that's fairly accurate, right? So it makes it really difficult. Remember, computers and algorithms don't have emotions. That's the only way I can kind of explain that sort of stuff on Apple, So take that for what it is. That's kind of what I see going on there. Do you see similar stuff there, guys?
what? What was that? Sorry.
Oh, the way the carry trade's running it all, and then the way Apple and all that. I
Yeah,
actually,
yeah, yeah. I mean, Apple's just been, well, Apple had some news in the morning with the EU stuff, so I think it caused that to be weak in the morning. Then it picked
right.
back up straight in the afternoon.
Yep,
So
yep,
that's
yep.
when I started shorting some of those stocks in the morning.
Yeah, yeah. So I found that, like, basically how I played that was I went short the 71.50 calls, no, 75 calls, and spread that against the 80. So that was a good trade at periods over the last few days. But, yeah, you're fighting that. So vol was a lot higher, so the vol bit's working, but the stock isn't really falling despite that. So you got that blind following, in that always. So Rusty, And so there's a lot of, don't forget also, we got the Chinese put this week, or was that last week? And we've already got the US put. So there's kind of put. Now, when we come to the Apple, a lot of big central banks and funds own it. So they kind of always try to protect it because they're probably using that for margin, don't forget. And there's a lot of weird margin stuff going on, which we talked through on the website there on a lot of the big commodity players like Trafigura and people like that. So they're all interwoven in all this. So there's a lot of unknown time bombs out there, I hate to tell you, in different markets. So nickel was one. They managed to diffuse that. So far, so good, but it's not real. Who knows where it all is? You've got a couple of billion taken off Evergrande, is it? I always get those two mixed up. That ship that ran ashore, remember, in the Suez, and the Chinese fund, kind of the same thing.
Yeah, Evergreen or whatever.
Yeah, Evergreen. That's it. So Evergrande, I think, is the fund. Or the property developer, and Evergreen was the ship. Okay, let's look at Rusty. So Rusty didn't get over on the week. Didn't close over this on the week. Remember, that's what it needed to do. Didn't do it. Okay? So that's the big thing for the small caps. I don't think we need to do too much on that. Again, that's all going to be in the weekly. This is the 10-year bond. And as I said, this thing just got wrecked. It sold off. This is from this high. The bond was on the 7th. It has sold off relentlessly since then. So a good hedge, and I know some good stock and index traders that are trading basis short. This is their hedge. So just, I reluctantly even look at FinTwit anymore because you got people just wanting to crap on good traders to make themselves feel good. They have no idea the whole positions or what they're doing or where they come from. And basically 95% of them are either Uber bears or Uber bulls, and they try to bullshit that they're either or. So just do yourself a favor. Just look at this chart. Anyone that told you to hedge the bonds, which I know some of the people getting crapped on, killed it here, right? And it goes against. So you have a strategy, you have a portfolio, and you match them all up. So just be wary of these people. They're toxic, is the nicest way to put it. Would anyone disagree with that comment? Yep, no one's disagreeing. So they agree. So before we get into stocks, we want to look at oil, right? So weekly oil, here we go. So look what we've done. And we haven't changed. It bounced hard off this test here. That's a hard. So what do you think's going on under here, right? Now, the big boys that had the margin calls and all that, they've fed them by now every a week. So the people short, you got to look at it across the curve, but you can see how powerful this is. And this is either 3 or 5. Just keep all that in mind, right? And now you've got the daily, and you can see again off that 50. You can see how this just powers away off these numbers, right? And the 240. And these, you just go back, pause on the website, on the YouTube, whatever. But you can see how well this works. Minus 2.8. We've never looked back. Look at it, it's clinical, 50. You see how Nova Wave works, right? And you need to have this kind of background because there's news bombs more to the point. Just today, we had it selling on SPR, selling on Venezuela, then buying on a bomb blast. Who knows when all this happens, whether it's real, so stick to a formula and don't get too heavy or you will get hurt. Natural gas has been one of the easier trades I've seen for a while, and that little bastard. Is that a swear word over here? I can't remember anymore. Look at that. Boom. Right? It's exactly what we said. So hopefully, not saying we're soothsayers, what the charts were saying. And look at that on daily. So this was real easy. And a lot of those stocks we're in obviously benefit, and more so. I mean, and we'll go through one of those stocks we got caught up. We'll go through some stuff on that. So that's everything on energy. You can go through it later. Commodities, we really just want to look at gold and copper. Copper had a false break. And remember yesterday, Madavi and I shorted that FCX on this. He did better than me on that one. Because they get violent. I'm a little bit tight. So look what it's called off, but it stayed over the Tenkan. So you can see what copper's doing there. Gold was a strong week. It mightn't look like it because it closed down today. Why does it keep doing that? So gold, if you remember, came down and tested all this Tenkan, right, through the week. It's a weekly chart. And look, we might have been down a few bucks this week, but we're up a solid percent. So this is impressive with the... So what I noticed here today, and this is probably Johnny when he talks about Bitcoin might have more to say on this, but with high yields, the dollar actually floundered, the US dollar, the Aussie dollar strong, commodities, all that good stuff. But gold, while it was down today, held its own when you consider how weak those yields are. Remember, higher yield makes the dollar more attractive, all right? So that was significant. We'll see how that plays out next week, in my mind anyway. But and I know you agree with that, Madabi. You like your gold, mate. And silver is stayed above this breakup. That's more, what do they call it, poor man's gold or something? So I tend to consider this a bit of a, yes, it's safe haven, but it's also a bit of an industrial, and it's a real punter's kind of playground, right? So the other commodities, we look at wheat. Through this wheat ETF. It did break up out of this downtrend at the start of the week, and we're kind of really doing nothing in no man's land as it's consolidating. I haven't made so we're gonna. This is either 1, 2, 3, and it's going a lot lower, or we're building something to have another run up. So I'm going to let the charts decide that one. I am not a grains trader, and I've done a few trades off this. This is basically my whole grains career. So I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Soybeans, look at this a little bit different. So soybeans is also seen as a gauge for inflation by many players. So you can see that fits in with all that high inflation. And beans, of course, used for feedstock, etc. Right? What's the other one? Corn. So corn, another well-bid week. Corn is also used in ethanol and stuff like that, as is sugar and other things. This has been a beast this week. This is aluminium or aluminum, but whatever you want to call it. This is Alcoa, and Alcoa is a great way to look at that sort of stuff because it has the benefit of the commodity stock. So it'll give you a heads up what's going on there. What was the other one? Steel was Cliff this week. CLF was a monster. US Steel was a monster. So big week for all that stuff. Okay, let's talk stocks. So there's Alcoa. Where do we put all those marijuana stocks? Oh, let's talk Mullen real quick. Because Mullen's one we like to smack around a bit. That doesn't look like it's updated. It definitely closed a lot lower than that. So I might have to reboot that chart. Or did Mullen run at the end of the day? Did it go back up? No, for some reason that's not updating. But we're going to look at, here we go. So let me create a new, for some reason they didn't save all those stocks we looked at yesterday. That's annoying. So I'm going to put in, Tilray here. I didn't, perhaps I should have rebooted, but let's see what Tilray did. So I'm going to move over to a different platform here because I got to reboot this. So while we're doing that, let me just, so let's talk Bitcoin while I'm doing that, John, if you want to. Here's Bitcoin. So what you saw on Bitcoin this week, and I know you want to talk about the merger and stuff between that and Ethereum. What's your thoughts on Bitcoin while I bring up this other? You there, Johnny? No. So it looks like we lost Johnny there. So we're going to bring up these charts real quick, and we're going to go through Tilray, etc. So before I did that, I wanted to also talk some of these more economic stocks. So lumber actually was reversal of most commodities. Now, why is that? Well, we saw KBH have problems, and we've seen housing numbers have a problem. So with these higher interest rates, people just ain't going to borrow and buy houses if they don't have to, if they can't, if they're worried. So one of the reasons lumber went up was because of housing starts, right? So we noticed that came off. So that's your weekly chart, and it's closed right at the key Cajun level there, right? So this actually trades very well. So we're going to let's have a look at FedEx. I wanted to have a look at, because this is a good barometer for the market. And you can see on the 4-hour chart there what's happened here. So in the 4-hour chart, it's building this rising wedge. One sec, I just got a message here. So it's building this rising wedge that we need to keep an eye on. Oh, Johnny's on a call right now. I just got a message. So this is important to watch because this is such a big parameter, FedEx, of the economy, of gasoline usage, diesel usage, etc. So what I wanted to show you was Mullen, because this is one, we almost manhandled this one. It was pretty easy over the week. And I'll tell you a big trading mistake I made. In fact, we both made it pretty well, Madabi. I think we can share it. So here is the stock 4 hours, right? So as you recall, we recognized it and we got involved and we drove it up. And then, as we said here, this is a classic stock as far as secondaries and all that go, and everyone's long. I knew the hedges were getting short again. So what I didn't do, and Madavi had advised me to do this, and it kind of left my brain, was to box the short, right? So I could short it. Because when I wanted to short, so I shorted here, no worries, and I'd sold puts. I bought all the puts back. I go to short it for 3 days, didn't I, mate? And I could never box it. So if I had to box it up here when I shorted it, which probably meant I paid 2 or 3% interest, who cares, right? But I've got it. So what it meant was I couldn't pound the thing short, with anything, one share, let alone the size I wanted to do. So that's a good lesson, guys. And Madavi's a much better stock trader than what I am. I'm more so sometimes I forget some of the old skills. And that was a big one. To put it in perspective, this was $4 where we started shorting it from. It bounces as we expected back to $3.40. That's why we sold the 250 puts. We bought them back nicely. And then we go to short it, we couldn't short it. Now, we didn't want to buy puts because the vol's so high, obviously, if we were doing that trade there. We obviously could have worked out, made money doing that, but to me, it wasn't worth the risk. So that was a whole trade that we missed there. And we'll see if we get back into this from a trading vehicle point of view. But that was an opportunity that popped up. That's where we traded it hard. We did a similar thing, 9 months ago? There's a drug stock or biotech stock called OCGN, similar kind of stuff. You have the fervor. You have a combination of punters, meme stock, and traders all in something. It gives you all that volume. Look at all that volume. It's crazy, right? No volume here, then all this volume. And look what it's done. It's dribbled away. So when we saw this divergence, but that's a rookie mistake there. I should have done it. And our man Madavi did advise me, and I didn't heed it. So here's our other chart. Yeah, it kind of was costly, eh? Opportunity loss there.
You got to remember this. when there's a good time to short it, there's not going to be no shares left. You're not going to get any.
Right. So you box it, which means you have the short and you're paying interest for it, ready to use at any time, right? Which I didn't do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if they call it boxing it anymore, but they used to, right? What do they call it now?
There's only a few places you can do that too, like E-Trade, right? Don't buy back your shorts and just buy a long position, not covering it. So kind of like that.
Yeah, 100%. And he'd advised me to do it. I'm like, I said, look at it. It doesn't cost anything. And he go, well, and sure enough, it's kind of like when I say, don't buy puts when you don't want to. Buy them when you, which was a really nice trade. I was been buying puts in Fubu over the last 3 days. Lo and behold, it craps itself today. I did get out too early, but that's kind of the trade you want to do.
So you're going to notice on days that you're like, oh shit, this is a great short. And you've been waiting for that. It's not going to, most of the time you won't be able to do it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of what happened there, right? Unfortunately. But you know, all it is an opportunity loss. The first part of that trade was recognizing when to get out of the long. That's obviously very important. But then also, remember, we're trading here. We're not investing, and we're certainly not dribbling. We're actually doing the trade. So little things like that, you want to be doing, right? So that's that one. We talked about that. We talked about FedEx. Okay, so let's talk what we wanted to talk about. And I wanted to show that on Sierra, but I got to reboot it. So we're going to use it here. So Tilray, we want to start off first. And I asked for some info while you were talking. I got the short position on that, so we can go through that as well. So Tilray, Madavi's traded this on and off for years. Back when it was $300. I called BS on him. Sure enough, it was up there. Remember you reminded me this morning? I was like, yeah.
I told you.
Yeah, I got $300. I said, who the hell would have paid $300 for that? And he went, well, someone did. Look at that.
No.
So this is a Canadian stock. Huh?
Mate's like, oh man, this stock is $7. I go, well, it's also a $300 stock too, so you got to take that into consideration.
So, wow, look at that. To get to where we are today, I got to go. I shouldn't have sat off weekly to show you. Wow, that was quite a few people took this one. Yeah, so there's obviously a lot of overhead supply, which limits its uptrend, but it also, as Madavi said, means there's going to be a lot of people. Damn, how am I going to get down to that? So obviously Sierra's our favourite, so I'm not used to this one. But I don't want to drag us into the podcast since Adam forever. Wow, gives you an idea how far it's fallen. Look at this, eh?
Oh yeah. You know, people thought the drug business you can't miss. Well.
Yeah. I guess those that love the bong don't make really good decisions when it comes to investing.
Legalized drugs, perfect. Take a legalized crack tomorrow, and you still have, there's going to be a lot of those companies will lose money.
This is an easy way to do it. Here we go. So this stock, as you recall yesterday, we got word. I mean, you all got word, and it was almost at the low that there was. And so the night before actually, which is this spike here. So people obviously knew what was. Well, actually, this is probably just coming up with the market. But here, someone upgraded. I can't remember who it was. So remember. Do you remember who it was?
That's one.
And that was a day before the news. So these people obviously were aware. I mean, it could have been total coincidence. But the volume was coming in before it, that it was going to be that up before the legislator to vote on to legalise this stuff. And remember, because it came down so far, there's a lot of people that are long and just been selling calls or buying puts on this to hedge their position. So they had to cover, plus speculators love it, right? This doesn't look right either. Something weird with these charts today. Look at this. It's not... Oh, this is Canadian dollars. Okay, Well, you know what? So before we go to the US, this is Toronto. It's a Canadian stock. So look at that in Canada, and you can. So it's a good way to look at both of them. So all this buying came into Canada before it hit us in the States. So let's look at the US one again. And so there we are. So here's what we actually traded. It was American, because I was looking at $10, but that was Canadian. So Canadian dollars weaker. So here's that island. Here's that upgrade overnight. And then, which we traded, or Madavi traded this one. Remember that? And then he's bought it back the next day. We traded a little bit, so we're fortunate to be long on this announcement. And then we got in around 560. And I remember saying to you, Dan, it's a pity we got in late. And then it just ripped. Then this morning, so it went out.
I get it, I think.
Yeah. And so, those who saw our podcast last night, we talked about this. We traded it overnight. We sold it early, 8:30 or so. We got up, and it came all the way back to 750. Actually went lower, and then we got long again. Just traded it, and then the chairman or the CEO, whatever they call them in Canada. I know different countries have different names. He's gone on CNBC, and that fed it. So let's make it shorter time frame. So the good thing with Tilray, it has investors in it, traders in it, and punters in it. I don't think dribblers really get in these because it's not sophisticated enough, right? Am I getting too sarcastic, my old age? But this was a really nice trader. So what we moved on, if you recall yesterday, was we noticed there was other people in this space. So one that we liked was, what's the symbol again? CL. I put it on.
Which one?
The one we traded pretty hardcore.
The little one we bought, it was CBD or something.
Yeah, Clove. Oh, that one? Yeah, we'll go back to that. So this is the one that I got a heads up, and I was so busy on energy stocks, I didn't buy it till 236. It was still a good buy, obviously. But the boys were buying this in here. And look at this positive bloody divergence. And this exploded. So what's important on this end, the real speculative end, you know that things like marijuana are cool to the young guys, right? Like, hey, pot, like tech, whatever's the cool thing. So this thing had a reputation of a SPAC that went wrong. So if you notice, a lot of SPACs have been picking up. We played, like Mullen was a SPAC, right? So there's a lot of people that, of the dribbler persuasion and any of these sort of things, just average and average. So, but what happens when Tilray becomes alive? They all come alive. So this one was a big one right through after hours. We actually did really nicely on this.
I didn't do well enough. I didn't trade until aftermarket.
You were doing Tilray and futures here. I was mucking around with this here. So. Yeah, so I got lucky.
But I
on
thought I was run after the market, so I'm a stucky right now.
Yeah. So after it's Friday, so we got this little pattern forming. So we want to do what it's doing. Now you measure the. Actually, I did a short in here. If you remember, that. That was old school scalping. I didn't make much, but hey, I didn't get killed. Anyway, only joking, sort of. So anyway, this was a really nice trade. So the point we're talking about this is to show the opportunities there, but these are very fast and very short term. These aren't investment sort of vehicles. These are purely trading, knowing order flow, knowing your charts, and making a calculated risk and guess, really, on how short or long the market is and how much they want it. So remember, this meeting is next Thursday, so there's going to be lots of opportunity. So one thing I wanted to share with you, and I'll put this on the in the notes on the website. Well, I forgot to do this while I'm mentioning Tilray, but I asked a bloke who sends me short interest stuff from one of the good firms. So Tilray's short interest is 451 million shares, $1 million. That's 64.77 million shares of Tilray is short. And probably more after today, right? 14.08% of the float is short. And it's still pretty cheap. It's only 1.82%. So for those who remember stuff like GME, it's a long way from that. But that's still a sizable amount, right, Madavi? So it's 14.8%. That's 64 million is short. And on today, like at mark to market, the shorts lost 105 million in 2022 mark to market. Most of that was probably today, I'd say, last 2 days. Yeah, so that was up 18.5% in short. So all that good information is good to do. I didn't ask for this, but I got sent this because I don't really like trading this. I think it's a total dog to trade. But SNDL, the short interest in that is 12.2%, 244 million. Now, Mullen, which is one we know, we all know that one. We watch it, so I get sent that every day. Mullen is 145 million. 48.2 million shares of Mullen is short. So that's why I couldn't borrow the bloody thing. 14.82% if you can get it. So that's the other reason you box it, then you're going to get that cheaper. So that's, it gives you an idea what's going on. Now, the percentage of Mullen that's short, if this is accurate, 91.5% of Mullen's stock float is short. And that's why Madame and I went hard on it last 2 weeks, right? We're aware of that. To put that in perspective, GME, which you saw pump, how much did that go up this week? We don't really trade it anymore, but there's only 19.7 of that short. That's why if you want to know why we put it all together, that's why. So CGC, which is another marijuana stock, has 16.6%. Actually, sorry, 19% of the float short. So as you can see, there's a lot of shorts on the marijuana industry. So it was probably a bit of a surprise, right, that they're going to put that, because everyone's just the opinion that Biden isn't going to allow it, etc. I mean, but there's other stuff there. I won't bore you with it. What other stocks did we want to look at today in marijuana?
Like you said, I traded Tilray, Snaps.
Snap.
YCBD.
Oh, yeah.
IMP and JD.
Oh, JD, yeah, you've killed that one this week. So, as you recall, Madavi added to that, went short overnight with the rationale, and it worked out perfectly. We'll look at that in a sec. But Snap's one that Madavi, as you recall, shorted nicely again up there at 37 the other day, and we got sold off with tech on that today. So sometimes it's better, once you recognize a weakness, not to do the future, but to do the weaker beta stocks if you're bearish and the stronger beta stocks if you're bullish. Snap's a real good example.
That 37.05 is short at 36.95, and that news came out with the EU and stuff.
Yeah, with Apple, yeah. And this got hit more than Apple because Apple came back. Apple finished positive, which is mind-blowing.
It was down to, it got as low as 43.75. I got out at 35.24.
Yeah, it was a nice trade.
Yeah, so I got it, I was hoping to go lower, but 36.95 to that, had an okay position.
Yeah, I think once Apple turned around, it put a bottom in a lot of obviously Nasdaq, because Nasdaq went hard up, and Tesla was over $1,000. So.
Even a weak stock can recover after what happened with JD.
Yeah. Well, let's look at JD real quick. Let me just drag this over here so I can answer the questions that people on buddy YouTube send us. Hang on, I got to drag that over here. I don't know what that is, but I clicked on something and it gave us that. I don't know what the heck that is, but anyway. So let's look at JD. So remember, that's been a big one this week. I did one little trade on it this week, but you were pretty active in this one.
I mean, it's like I said, I like to be stuff that's moving. It's in the news that it's going to go one way or another.
So it did do that. So you made a call yesterday to short this, and there was fundamental reasons for it. Remember, they did the secondary. Chinese were correcting.
Over $500 million in secondary, and now everybody wants to decouple from other nations. Whatever this new social justice thing they're coming up with now. I don't know.
What do they call it?
China and whatever fake fucking things they want to do. So that's the new thing right now. Along with
Right. So there's that gap down. Well, hang on. This is the gap down here. So there are two gaps down the road.
Go gap down. And one thing with this stock is it gaps up or down 2 or 3 points every day. I mean, it did it this morning too. I mean, look how much it was down when it opened.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. That's what you called for. You gap down $4. So that was a great call.
And with the pessimism, and he just made a huge run up. You remember, this was last week at 36.
Yeah.
I know it came down from $80, but still, in a 1 week thing, and doing a secondary, that secondary is really what really pushes it down.
Right, I mean, and you've got this gap down here, too, potentially.
All that new stock coming in, Chinese. So, yesterday, what it is, I was up like 2.5 points. I didn't take it. The futures got strong, and, it basically took me to a break even, right? So I added more to it yesterday, and I was hoping we're going to have a repeat performance today and be able to push down lower. And that's with all the bad news that's been out.
Right. And you can see where it's holding. There's people buying it. That's what that Cajun's telling you. But there's a lot of people caught on this. Look at all the volume that happened here. Look at this volume and that big run-up the other day. There's a lot of people caught on this thing.
Well, interesting what it does. It followed the futures, but still, it ended up the day how much down today?
What's it say it's down? Hang on, it's over here. Minus $1.60 at the end of the day, it looks like. But it was a lot.
Down there.
Yeah, it's pretty well down, even with the futures. So, okay. So that's nice. So let's look at, so as you know, kind of energy's been really nice to us this year. We've been pretty spot on. So overnight, well, firstly, here's the thing: you got advantage if you know your markets and what truly, in the meaning of macro, is in a relationship and all that. And basically, we have a risk matrix. So we knew natty gas had already broken up, right? We already knew that. We knew the weather and we didn't know all that sort of stuff. So we already were positioned very nicely, as we've been talking about, with stocks like EQT, obviously Exxon, Hess. Some of these were out of the now. What was the other ones? VET, Rig, even the little one we added yesterday again, who just live up the road. I drive past them every day. SWN, Southwest. They were the cheapie, right? That was the bargain of the day. So many of them. So we're going to go through them, but I want to share one thing that happened to me today, which I couldn't work it out. Remember that? I was a little bit peed off, as you are. So VET is a Canadian company that I tend to use as a short against my other positions, right? So anyway, I came in long it, and I sold calls against yesterday, good vol, at the money, or just slightly out of the money calls, right? So I'm long here, basically. This is a daily chart. So strategy of the position is, and you can see it's a positive divergence that's going on. You can see it's in Murray, and this is daily. Anyway, so to make it understandable what I'm trying to say. So, and we already have positions, these, understand, you have the strategy, right? You have your S&P futures, you have your oil futures, and if you want to replace that with ETS, whatever, however you trade, you want to have a strategy. So we've bought it out of the thing. We come in long. We've bought it. So around here, it's come down here. No, it must have been here. So anyway, unbeknownst to me, I switched over my mouth. Should I laugh or cry? To one of my son's gaming ones, and it was a little. And I actually didn't realize I'd reconfigured it. So taking probably the long, I got short, and because I had the optionality, I didn't realize it, right? So what happened in here, VET got upgraded. We knew that. I forget who by now, but then it got refreshed. So in the end, what do? You take your loss and you readjust it. So you can be the right way or round and stuff it up is the point I'm trying to make. We're all human. And sometimes when you have a bigger book, it goes unnoticed. So at the end of the day, anyway, this stock, as you can see, if the market is short these, and it's obviously very favourable, there's a lot of potential in these stocks, even though they're hot. Because what happened is, with energy, they became very uncool. And Madavi not sure if you realise you're making this point to me, but you made it pretty well. That all of a sudden, on CNBC, because Joe Biden went to Europe, and all of a sudden, energy's cool. Natural gas is cool, right? They were pumping it clean. And I'm like, I thought you were taking the pee out, but I didn't realize you were reciting.
Good stuff out here.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, they were basically saying to all those people, I'm not buying it, to buy it, right? I mean, and so another one was SWN, which was a nice one we did yesterday. And so that just mowed it up all day. So remember this one. So this is the one up the road. What I find so what happens is, because it's lower price, smaller investors get into it. Traders, punters, whatever. But when I say punter, they're looking for that fast move, so they got it. This one also trades around options levels, because it is. So the history of this, there's a bit of it on the website. If you want to know the fundamentals, you shouldn't just trade them because they're natural gas and charts. You want to know the fundamentals of the different companies. Some of them are genuine, some of them good, some of them have debt. But obviously at 550, if you own natural gas leases, and if you haven't overhedged these, I don't know this company's positions, but it becomes a flavour. This sort of move, I just take profit on, to be honest. A couple of times.
No, one thing I appreciate about Biden is he came in not an energy guy. Now he's an energy guy. He's selling energy now.
After he destroyed it, right? So understand, anyone that listens to this podcast, anyone that's listened to this podcast knows what happened.
Well, I really think he did it on purpose to create the situation, because he did the whole thing by himself. Did the Ukraine magic. Did this over here, cut the supplies way down, hike prices, and now go sell to Europe. He's a magician.
I think I just wet myself or spilt my coffee. I did something. But on that word of wisdom. But here... Sorry.
I mean, you could have orchestrated better than that. I mean, he did the whole thing. He's pretty good. That's the best way to run it.
Well, there's a little saying called unintended consequences, and so what's happened. So that's as a very good example to know the hell what you're talking about as traders or investors. Politicians, when they got on that whole populism system and of this and a fossil, it's all bad. Just you got to have a bloody plan. So and the blatant refusal, or to demonize. Firstly, Texas, from an American point of view, and Dakota and all these other people, when you needed it, was just stupid. And then to put in an energy secretary who mocked increasing production, now comes to CERAWeek 2 weeks ago and basically says, the national interest. Bear in mind, the President of the United States constantly blames the US oil companies for it, right? I mean, it just goes on. And now we flip today, natural gas, it's clean. Hang on, I thought that was dirty. Now, coal, we all know it.
Different from that old stuff. You know what I'm saying? That Russia stuff is not clean like the United States.
So here's the hard thing for me is we've been in this for a long time. Obviously, we know these things. Has this got a lot more to go? There's so many possible bifurcations on all this. So here's another one, EQT. Many of you know and have traded, and it's been one of our favorites. That exploded today to the point where I got overfilled trying to get out of a long position because of the talk on, what was it, the SPR stuff. It took, even with good size, because you got to make a decision. Is this going? So this is another example. The potential on these is insane, and also the pullback is insane. So the way to trade these, if you're an investor, a lot of you doing really well, you're just running it, is you'd use your optionality, however you want to do it. But these are all companies that were so beaten down. I don't know if they're short because a lot of their stuff is hidden in hedge funds and all that. Sorry?
Think about this. Trump was really high on the oil and gas sector. He couldn't sell the deal that Joe sold today. And he tried.
Well, let's look back. Let's go back to Trump. So the reason Trump isn't so loved in the energy parts of... So there's a lot of misconceptions about partisan politics, and everyone loves Trump, who is not of the left persuasion, who's of the right persuasion, and the left persuasion, they hate Trump, love Biden. Well, that's not true, right? So think for yourself around the middle, not for the idiots that are blind partisans. Do yourself, if you're driving down a highway in Texas late at night, a deer in the headlights, that's your blind partisan. You're in Australia, kangaroo, deer in the headlights, same bloody thing, right? So move away from that. Donald Trump smashed oil down to $30, $40. So that hurt the oil industry before it all collapsed, and there was a price war between the Saudis and the Russians. So look at what really happens to what's sold to you, right? So they were with glee, the Democrat Party, when oil went to zero. And even Trump only looked at low oil prices, right? So they're all bloody guilty when that happened. I'm talking as an Australian and a Texan and whatever. And I think Madavi would agree too. Now we're up here all the way. So this was artificially made here because they didn't understand the market. And they were so intent on the whole, so many factors at work. Lockdowns, all that. So don't become a blind partisan. I don't know how anyone can be 100% Democrat or Republican anyway. And I'm saying that obviously from someone that didn't grow up with it. But there's good and bad and everything. But use common bloody sense. Something like energy should not be a partisan thing, or healthcare or anything. We know all that because it's relevant and it has so many bifurcations, right? And we're seeing that.
I wonder, hey, mate, who do you think the gas companies give more money to, the Biden or Trump?
That's a trick question. And
I
know.
It's actually there. You would not believe it, but
well, actually, I do believe it because I remember saying, and people said you're an idiot. Well, they may be right. I'm an idiot about a lot of things, but I said best thing that can happen to oil and natural gas prices was Joe Biden becomes president of America. Remember that? And lo and behold, and they go, oh boy, because they just think partisan, right? Biden,
you're absolutely right. They gave him more money than Trump.
Well, because the policies are nonsensical, right? Well, they do it also not for good reasons. They're trying to do things like, I don't know, change the scrubbers.
To Joe and Trump.
Right. Well, Trump was not liked in the energy industry. Don't forget that. Because of all driving down oil prices.
He's a Hall of Famer. I got to thank him for that.
Oh, mate. I haven't got any more coffee to spill. You've already spilled it on the wisdom of Biden one. But so let's look at some of these stocks. So here's EQT, and these are all good ones to trade. So, and remember, if you're going to go short, just be tight. I find on shorting, I'll get some really good winners, and you'll have a couple of bangers because there's so many bombers. But the other reason I was mentioning all that with Trump and Biden and all that is there's lots of time bombs out there. You don't know who's short and who's long on a lot of them. So these aren't like your dribbler stocks, all that crap, that we talk about, the upstarts, the Palantirs, all that crap, right? These are actually genuine. We're talking about genuine people here. Companies that have big funds, big hedges on. There's lots of reality to these, and there's a truer commodity behind it, right? Other than hope or delirium. But here's Hess is another one. 52-week high today. Sorry?
What other company sector did Trump bankrupt, if you remember?
Oh, mate, he bankrupted a lot, didn't he? Hotels? Casinos?
Oh.
No? What else?
All the firearm companies. That's why. It's the same thing with oil companies. So people don't believe what you like. The firearm companies and oil companies are in love with the Republicans. They're not. The firearms give a lot more money to the Democrats that are supposed to be shutting them down than they do to the Republicans.
That is true. I remember you showing me that. Yeah, interesting game. But
so it's never what it seems. Just remember, everything's a delusion when you're looking at things.
Well, that's something that we always use at NovaWave. Trade smart, and nothing is as it seems, right? So, I mean, just look at. If you look at some, this is quite phenomenal. Some of these stocks. This is Hess, who a lot of you probably know, Hess Corporation, big natty, and all that. So, and don't forget, today's move was more natural gas than oil. So, right, and so
these companies were almost bankrupt.
Well, these sort of ones weren't. These are quality players.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. These little ones were not doing so well.
Someone like SWN we just looked at, from my memory, they were pretty well done. And I know a few blokes there. Occidental, lots of trouble, as we all know. Hess, now I can't remember who they took over.
Or Warren Buffett put a bunch of money in it now? I think Warren Buffett just stuck a whole bunch of money in it.
Yeah, so he's got in it. So all I can say is this. I live in Houston now, right? And have been for quite a while. When I'm at like baseball I am shocked. I mean, it's partisan here, but not politics. Texans are it's kind of like Australia in many ways. They're very proud of it. They know a lot of people hang crap on them. They don't really give a crap, right? But they kind of support their own. So a lot of these people, who I was kind of shocked, actually, with one bloke I'm thinking of, have made boku money. Like sick amounts of money. You wouldn't know it because they're not flashy about it. They don't care about it. On investing in the companies they knew and stocked and believed in, they knew the prices of the energy, but they might have had someone work there. And it's shocking how much. And they're genuine. They're certainly not dribblers. So that, in turn, has helped all the economy and all that sort of stuff in different factors, which you can see through a lot of these companies, right? I was telling you a story today. I was like, wow. Remember? I was like, the guy. Yeah, the guy, all that money in options and stuff, and I'm like, and that's, and it was just a fun little investment. I'm like, gee. Well, tell me next time, mate.
Hey, man. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Let me tell you.
Oh, no. Well, he wasn't really lucky. They know their stuff. They know these companies. They know they're undervalued.
They know it, and it happens to work out. Sometimes you can know their stuff, I met a lot of guys that know everything. And they couldn't trade themselves out of a paperback.
Oh, no. They're not traders. These are investments. These are all investments.
Whatever you guys touch, it always goes to shit. They always pick the wrong one.
Well,
some people, I don't know what it is.
Well, in oil and gas and commodities, most people who invest in them or know them or work in them, so you talk pretty well Australia and Texas, they've seen all the booms and busts, so they know value. And they know kind of how much to punt, for want of a better word, or invest. So
the winter is coming, and it's going to be cold.
well, yeah, there's that factor. But yeah, it was you just knew with certain things, and you know there's no investment going in, and all this sort of thing. Some things don't change. The weather doesn't change. It's always cold in winter. It's always...
It shut down a lot of those competition, all those little ones. Mm-hmm. So it's made the stock very, like, for the guys who are left, very good.
Oh, 100%.
Because all the others got bought out or out of the game, right?
Well, and don't forget this: they were shamed into producing. You had a Federal Reserve governor, potential Federal Reserve governor. I think her name was Sarah Raskin. It was Raskin, the last name anyway. Who said banks should not lend to bloody fossil fuel, i.e., oil and gas, energy. Oblivious. What's even worse is they put her up to do it in a bloody crisis. So what's interesting, that gives you an idea, the thinking going on. It blows my mind, that sort of thing. Because you want politicians to have half a brain, at least, right?
So they even put laws against it so they don't loan to these high toxic companies, right?
Right.
For them to get the same loan that costs everybody else like 8% or 6% or 5%, they're paying 20%.
So that's the other that's the other area where a lot of Houston and Dallas in particular have done very well. They've had to go to private equity for the investors because they needed investments. They got killed by these banks before, so they need an investment to keep going production, to keep as a going concern. And a lot of these people are they're very simple. Simple. I don't mean simple as in stupid, but they're very rudimentary. They want to support the community. They support their workers. They're loyal. Very different to Wall Street. So that money they got and they gave up to private equity, right? Basically from here. Now, obviously, some of it went to your Carlyles and all that sort of person. But that's what's different with this one. So the banks, they're just stronger. They're healthier. They're leaner, and they're basically told not to produce. In fact, that was the one or the first or second thing when this government came into power in the United States, just ban bloody drilling on federal. So there isn't enough. And it would be nice to say we have enough windmills, enough solar, but we don't. That's the reality, right?
Somebody tells me they might, after what the collapse last year, this could be a reward for all the ones that are left too, right?
Oh, 100%. And a lot of them survived, though. You'll be surprised how many survived. I'm
going to take care of you, and I'm going to make sure prices stay up there.
Right. So let me think. I'm getting pressured now after being shamed to increase production, knowing if I do and I spend all that other money, if it all crashes, which it will, it's the way it works. I'm going to be left holding the bag. I'm going to be laughing, and then all the same thing with the anti this, anti that. And why do people got to be so bloody anti? What happened in the middle of the road, right? Or just common sense?
Shows too. We don't know these. They can be planning all this stuff. They're just so crazy that they would never do that. But mate, I've seen crazier things happen.
Look, I've been around long enough. They have no effing idea what they're doing when it comes to energy. Not this mob, the mob before. The people that are on, and that's the whole thing. The people that actually are at these oil companies, or at the even Elon Musk gets he obviously knows what he's doing, but he gets chastised because it's all political. It's ridiculous. He had the foresight, for example, knowing that if we're going to have EV, we're going to limited supply of the minerals we need, of the rare earths, the nickels, the lithium, all this. So he had the foresight to go ahead and tie up the deals. Why didn't the others? Right? Why? It's just the people that have the foresight get punished, and that's the sad fit of where we're at right now. Like a lot of what's happened in Ukraine and Russia and all that is because if you go back, we've talked about this ad nauseum. Fukuyama happens, they get rid of nukes, blah blah blah. Then you get all the whole anti-fossil ESG mania without a plan. That's why, this didn't happen yesterday. This didn't happen because Vladimir Putin decided to be a nut job. This, and they don't know what they're doing because they don't think It's all populism, which means they want to be popular today without thought. I mean, it's just mindless. But it's always happened.
Crazy.
That's human.
They want to do a false flag thing. They could cause a nuclear war. I mean, these guys don't get it. They're crazy. This makes no sense.
Well, I don't think anyone wants a nuclear war. I mean, maybe Kim
talking about
North
a
Korea.
false flag like happened in Syria. I mean, what would you get out of that? You would get a war.
Oh,
right?
over there, yeah.
We're talking about it, so that's how you know it's a false flag.
But so what's happened in the end? If we move forward, all that now we have a real war, real people, a lot of people dead, and don't forget, there's been a lot of people dead in all these other wars. Like how many died in Iraq, etc., etc. But we don't want to go into all that. We're just talking about energy policy. So if
those presidents, remember the picture was it 6 million?
Well, I mean, I don't have a lot of time for that. Stalin killed 22 million. Who knows how many Putin's killed with Chechnya and all that. But that's all irrelevant. That's just dirty politics. What we're talking now is energy policy right now, and how it's created all this, and the lockdowns. And so, for example, the lockdowns were just everything was reactionary. They didn't wait to see the virus and all that, but it all has all these things have consequences, and they've got to be thought through rather than scaring and shaming people over everything.
All these wars have been about energy, right? They're all about energy, nothing else. This is all about energy, keeping the energy and making sure you keep your dominance. They all have been.
I think they're more about power and money. So energy happens to be power now. But before it was gold.
Energy. A lot of those companies had energy, gas, and oil. So a lot of them, look around, most of them.
Well, this one in particular is not just about energy, it's about food. Putin wants Ukraine for food. Ukraine is so look, you got to be real. You got to be real careful about a lot of these things because of what's punched on both sides of politics. But here's what we know. Here's the facts. The facts are this. The 30% of the world's wheat comes out of Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine is considered the breadbasket of Europe. It's the largest, one of the largest populations in Europe. Not the largest, one of the largest. Russia is all about oil. So if you want to think of a country as a commodity, you would think of Australia as iron ore and coal probably. You think of Russia as an oil company. That's really what it is. As far as natural gas goes, Ukraine's relevance is more as pipelines. There is natural gas there, but it's all part of the lies, etc., that come out of Russia is different things. It's multiple things.
So there are two elements, I believe.
Well, let's talk NATO. You have a history of a country that's just been proven by Putin's actions that you need protection if you're small countries and bullish. A bear, the wounded, there's an old saying in Eastern Europe, Western Europe, the Baltic, Scandinavia, you don't poke the wounded bear. And that's what Biden did. That's the relevance there. I don't think he believed it. But there's so much false bullshit that comes from people that have no idea of that region. Just go ask people that live in the Baltics. Go ask people that live in Scandinavia. Go ask people that live in Ukraine. Go ask people that live in Poland, Hungary. Don't ask some bloke who's in New York, doesn't know where he's going, in London, in Iraq. So they got no idea because they tie it into all these other things. Go ask someone who lives in Moscow.
Yeah, if you go to those countries like Mate said, and what TV's telling you, and what's really going on over there, I bet you it would be different stories.
Everything I'm saying is kind of what's going on there because I have relatives there and we have friends there. But as far as you mean in Ukraine and Russia or the countries borderlining? I would say in Ukraine and Russia, there's probably not even TV, right? They've all been shut down in both those countries.
The propaganda they sell on TV usually is probably not actual what's really happening. That's the only thing I'm saying.
So, look, all that's really happened is Russia hasn't changed in hundreds of years, right? Everyone in that area knows that. Everyone would laugh And what I'm saying, I've said multi-years, you've known, how we've been mates for so long. And but again, it's just been proven. And as sad as what that is. But it doesn't mean a lot of these things happen because other people interfere. A lot of happen, and so I'm not saying that's not, but a lot of it, if you're from that region, it's same old, is the point I'm trying to make. Which is the same in the Middle East, right? People interfere, have no business being there, right?
So that's the exact thing is they know that, and they use that to agitate to get their going for their cause. That's my whole point.
Well, what they agitate, I think, more is people that are living safely in America, for example, that all of a sudden they got an opinion. They don't bloody know. The same people that loved Putin 6 months ago hate him. The same people that hated him 6 months love him. Or whatever, just pick a country. I mean, but
America needs to sell the TV people something so to make it sound like they're the good people. I mean, the same stuff that Putin's done, they done in all the wars too. So it's just propaganda.
Well, no, it's not really propaganda. There hasn't been a war like this since World War II. Putin, at the end of the day, the guy has to take responsibility. He's still attacked, and there's a lot of people dead. So he attacked in Europe. Yep. This is Putin attacking Ukraine. It's that bloody simple. We can push it that someone else might have prodded him, someone might have done this, but at the end of the day, he needs to take responsibility, and it's not acceptable just to blindly kill people. And because it's happening here doesn't make it less that's happening in other countries previous. I'm specifically talking about this country.
Let's get to oil and gas, because this could be, we could debate this for Kingdom Come. We'll be here for tomorrow.
Well, that's true. But at the end of the day, we're really talking about it, how it's affected energy companies and stocks.
Absolutely. I understand all these things. What I have noticed is all these things that they've gone to war for, they have either natural gas, oil, or what's Afghanistan had, the thing for the batteries. They had a ton of those. They just couldn't get it out.
I don't believe Afghan was that though. I mean, because they didn't even know about that when the Soviets went in there, the English went in there, Americans went in there. I mean, what's mindless? That was all after the event. What they did know was there's heroin there. That's a topic for another.
Well, here's the great part about that, right? When they went to Afghanistan, you can read about this. So, and it's right next to people who had like the cotton fields, they burned them. So, but they told them to grow the poppy leaves.
Right. I mean, yeah.
They want to grow cotton. I'm like, why not cotton? Well, it could compete with our industry.
Yeah, there's so the interesting thing is so I mean, again, a lot of these things are just reactionary, trying to get things through at home. So what's the easiest way to get something through Congress or in America or Parliament in England? What's the easiest thing? To have a war, right?
Yeah, patriots, but you got patriotism, democracy against our way of living, they hate us, the whole thing. Or they're destroying people, same old things they sell.
Right, so at the end of the day, we have a special situation where we had really bad policies on energy and the prices here, $112 in WTI. And so here's another thought. Because of this policy, it's been so bad, and now they're trying to... So here's the thing, I don't agree with Putin at all. My views are pretty well known on that bloke. But at the end of the day, they're using him as an excuse now to kind of cover up all the bad policies that have led to these natural gases. So the thing is with natural gas, or most gas, people tend to buy it for a set fee, right? $10, $12, whatever, BTU. So up until now, if you take Centerpoint or someone like that, they've had to pay, if we just take the south bit of America, they've had to pay for all the, you and me, have had to pay for hurricane damage or fire damage in California or storm damage in New York. So that's all been justified to keep that price high. Now, all of a sudden, what's going to happen, now the natural gas price has gone from $1 to $2 BTU up to nearly $6, right? So you got this big thing that most people don't realize they're about to pay this big energy bill, right? They know it because of gasoline. So there's that too to consider.
Huh? Watch the next exchange that's opening. It's going to be the green, clean energy markets because they're a little bit more expensive. That 15 tons, a little bit because it's green. So, it's a little bit more expensive than the regular stuff.
Well, here's a funny thing. You actually made me a bit of money there because when you were saying green, because at the same day, marijuana stocks were moving. I thought you were talking about that. And that's how we found out about that $2 one.
We're not creating a salesman. Again, our boy Biden he's going to sell the green good stuff at a premium and take it away from Russia. That's pretty good, man.
I find it hard to believe that a rational person can believe that, right? But a blind partisan person, oh, yeah. But if you say that, but hang on, you hated that like a month ago. Oh, but it's different. No, it's the same thing. So anyway, the relevance of all that for us as traders is how. So I'm in two minds here. Does that mean we're going to go more extreme as far as stock prices go to catch up? I mean, energy stocks, or are we getting saturated? I'm not sure yet. I think
the United States is going to go to the green energy, and your gas bills are going to shoot. Your natural gas price is going to be about 3-4 times what you're paying now. That's one thing.
Well, that's the point. So the point I'm trying to make is right now, they've been able to hold that steady high price, and that goes in. So the profits of the center point.
Natural gas companies in America. That's what all the natural gas companies we're looking at today. Look how big they're running. I think they could be on a nice bull market.
Well, they're producers. That's a different game. They're all producers. They're going to make money. They bring it out. They sell it on the market. What I'm talking about is the consumer, like you and me, when we pay our bill every month for electricity and power. And even, so here's the other thing with EVs. So they still got to get power. So the majority of power comes from natural gas. In certain areas, coal and all that, blah, blah, blah. But
it's going to go up, mate.
Well, I know it is, but what I'm saying is the man in the street has no idea because he's already paying $10, right? It's $5. The reason he's paying that much is that's how they paid for all the bad infrastructure.
Yeah, the days of not paying cheap, dirty natural gas is over.
Well, I hope everyone did their contract like we advised everyone a long time ago with Reliant or whatever for 2 to 3 years. But so all of a sudden they're going to justify that going up. And to give you an idea how bad it is, anyone who knows about how bad ERCOT was, that money hasn't been spent on the infrastructure anyway. So now where's it going to go, right? So
you said it best. Every natural gas, everything's already sold ahead. Well, Biden just promised 15 tons to them this year or whatever. Where's that going to come from?
Right.
So that's going to put a shortage here in America too, because they're going to be that much. They have to produce more, right? You tell me. I mean,
that's the point. But the thing is, they can't. So as we were talking before, if everything was equal, if there was Boku ships and Boku pipelines, then there's so much natural gas. There's obviously Australia, right? Well, Russia's out of it, but Australia, Iran, all through Hungary, Poland, there's so much natural gas. But to ship it, you need a pipeline or a ship. And there isn't pipelines going from here to Europe. And there's only so many ships, right? And you can only so many. So this again comes to the total ignorance of these policies. You can't just promise something and click your fingers and it's there, right? These things take years. And don't forget, so when this government came to power, they stopped the pipeline. That was oil, but they stopped the pipeline and they banned drilling and all that. They shamed all this production. So people like Cheniere, who's massive, like Symbol LNG in Sabine, and all these guys weren't able to do what they wanted. The politicking that had to go for them and so many others just to get LNG, to get it export and shipping, Madhabi, is amazing. So you can't just pull it out of your butt, right? So at the end of the day, that puts... Well, he can promise all he wants, right? I can promise you, certain things I can't deliver. But, so what that means to the price is this. And remember, natural gas is each month it's in storage, you bring it out. You can promise it all, but if you can't put it anymore, so it all limits it anyway. So it's not going to go like
reserves.
Sorry,
you might be able to take some out of the reserves.
There isn't reserves. It's not oil, right?
I thought they don't have natural gas backup somewhere.
You do have it, but that's for domestic use. For overseas use, you got to have the ability to ship it. The reason I was a big buyer of FLNG and GLNG, they are the floating ships that are available. You can't.
We should buy more IMPP then, because they're a shipper, aren't they?
Oh yeah, all that shit's all bullshit. The real ones, there's real and there's make believe, right?
I don't know.
But at the end of the day, you don't make a ship overnight.
I agree.
So,
like I said.
But politics. There's two things in politics: the people spinning the crap either don't know what they're talking about, or they do, and there's very good liars. And in a partisan world, they blindly follow it all. So that's what's going on with a lot of this.
Where's that 15 tons going to come from? Or it's not? You're saying?
Over time it can, but it can't happen tomorrow. That's what I'm saying. A lot goes into it.
Throughout this year or something, for this year, and then I guess December.
So America's already pumping as much as they can. And shipping. We're at records right now. And there's Mexico underneath, which gets a lot from pipeline. So, Indonesia, last time I looked, pumped. Australia's the only one that's got any capacity, right? So, you limit, but again, all those ships they're already using over there, they're not going to be used here. It's limited to where it comes from. So, but it's great for countries that have it, that are exporters of it. So who's your biggest exporters of natural gas? Is Australia, Qatar, and America's is coming up behind. So Indonesia's. So again, you can only. It's one thing producing it. Second is being able to distribute it. Right.
Yeah. I'm going to make a prediction by next year and a half, U.S. will take number one spot.
That's their aim. But they got a long way to go, buddy. And have a look. Do yourself a favor. Have a look what's coming online in countries like Australia and in countries in Europe. So don't forget, there's a lot of gas around the world.
Well, hey, America's got some tricks up its sleeves when it wants to get somewhere.
I mean, and don't forget. Look, you've got countries that are you got a government of the United States that's very anti oil and gas companies. So if you're Exxon, Chevron, these guys are very astute leaders. They've seen it all before. They're responsible to their shareholders. They're responsible to their country. They're not responsible to someone who probably doesn't have the wits to be making the statement he's making.
I'm starting to think this is like the gun industry. Everybody thinks the Democrats want to take away the guns, but the gun makers are all about it in the back rooms, because I've seen that. I'm starting
it's oil and gas. No, mate.
I'm starting to adjust my thinking right now. I'm just letting you know.
What are you thinking?
Because it's like the gun companies, right? I want to saw who the gun companies give to. They give it to all the money to the Democrats. They want these things because they keep the gun prices high and sell there. So
you've got
just like when
remember? Unfortunately, I'm lucky enough to know a lot of these people. They're not easily swayed. They've seen the bull crap. They've seen bulls. They've seen busts.
I'm drifting to those thoughts. Not yet. I'm drifting right now.
So I will just say this, that companies like Exxon and Chevron don't have 1 year. They have 20, 30-year plans. Good energy companies have that. And so the fly-by-nighters are just like any other industry in tech or biotech or gold or whatever. So the steady eddies, for want of a better word, know their risks. They know their responsibilities. They know the risks. That's why no one's in Venezuela. They know what's in Russia, right? Huh?
I'm drifting over this thinking is like Democrats like, hey, we're going to get you more money. We're going to do this, and we're going to call it green, and it'll be perfect. We'll bankrupt Russia, and everything will just take over. And I think, wow, I'm sorry to think.
I think you're misunderstanding already where oil is anyway, and where natural gas is. OPEC, like Russia couldn't produce anymore anyway, right? So.
Well, I'm just saying what my thinking is right now while I'm drifting over. We'll see what happens. I'm not there yet. We'll see what happens in the next few months.
But anyway,
right now.
so as far as I think you get the drift, just from the way we're talking, there's very different minds, very different viewpoints of energy and understanding, and those in it just plow through it. So you need to be aware of the multitude of factors. It tends to get very heavy speculation, as you know, up and down. I mean,
that's always my opinions, by the way, and so these are just my personal opinions. So don't take them for facts or nothing like that. I'm not saying it's a fact. Or,
well, everything we're saying is just opinions, 100%.
Yeah.
But that's why it's very important just not to have a view, right? Everyone. That's why we put so much weight on the whole mathematical and probabilities of nova wave and the factors that go with it and all that. Like, it's good to have a healthy debate. You should always have that, because then, see, here's the reason I go so hard on dribblers, and they're so bloody convincing, and they groom you, and they don't even know it because they're kind of like politicians. And so when they're wrong, they just change their story. So they will shut you down, kind of like partisan. Oh, you're wrong. But and this time it's different. In the energy space, and even in the marijuana stuff we played around with in the last couple of days. And keep in mind, only reason we're playing that is because of the way it moved in the last 2 days. And there's a vote coming up next Thursday. Very, very different. But you want to get yourself around people with different views that are different to yours, and it'll challenge the way you think. It'll challenge the way you invest and challenge the way you trade, right? So if
it'll give you a different version of things, and maybe it fits your narrative. Who knows?
And you know what? Me and Madabi, we have a lot of very similar views, and we're good best of mates and all that. But we have polar opposite views on some things, and what it does, it makes both of us think different things, right? Because whatever you are you are a subject of your environment, whether you want to admit it or not, right, people? So so when it comes to investing and trading, so one of the most feral things is the ego and greed and all that. And so the markets bring that out in you more than most. And you will be wrong and you will be right. So you want to control it. I mean, as bullish as I am on certain stuff, I got caught short on a few plays today where I was, remember? It is what it is. Yeah, but the question is...
I did the best thing. 9 o'clock hit. I did the best thing. I took a little break and I was counting sheeps.
Yeah, power naps are good decisions. So all that stuff, and you surround good, and that was the whole idea of Traders Community originally, by the way, and still is, just good minds together. And unfortunately, people come in and want to, and so the more people get pissed off with that, the more you're doing something right. Always remember that, people. So hopefully, we kind of dragged on a little bit, a lot of stuff. So I hope if you like that, let us know. If you don't, you think it's all a load of wallop, that's good too. But it's that's the debate you want to have around topics that are, and energy is one of those things because it's been made as subject to wars, subject to climate change, all this sort of stuff. But the reality is you need it to live, particularly in the modern world, right? So
don't go far unless you got electricity.
Well, that's the thing. You need power, you need plastics, you need all this.
Hey, I got solar power on my house. Let me tell you. And they go, oh, you're going to have enough for the whole month. Some months, yeah, there's a lot of sunny days, but man, half the time I don't get enough for the whole month. Most of the time, actually. But my electric cost has been reduced by a lot. You know, I don't get the $1,000 bills anymore. It's there.
Well, here's a really unfortunate thing, because I think most of us, unless you're just a hardcore, but most of us know that there's too much pollution in the world and there's too much waste of energy and the cost and all that. So what's happened is, by just such ignorance, they've created a problem that should have been a smooth transition to now they're threatening, hey, you better increase production and everything because the cost is so dramatic. Remember, all part of their theory was demand destruction. Well, that's all well and true if you want to do it smooth and thing. And we've come right after people have had their incomes destroyed, their assets destroyed from these lockdowns and all this. It's not good. And you couldn't have... See, that's why I give them no credit, because you couldn't have planned it so well without being geniuses. And they ain't bloody geniuses.
Hey, they've been planning this for 8 years. It's not like it just happened yesterday. This has been a steady progression for 8 years. In 8 years, I could plan a lot of stuff.
Well, you're giving them a lot more credit than what they deserve. I know that's the view of a lot of conspiracy theories, but too much of it's just... It's like the Federal Reserve, right? Doesn't know. It's just one fix after a fix, you know?
Okay, maybe the president would change, but the views and stuff never change. It just carries on to the next guy. There's a guy there, the career one, who's just running the plan. And that's, you can tell, the succession. Just a new guy changes.
Certain things, definitely. Certain things. But it's just, it's like the Keystone Cops or the Three Stooges. I maybe I'm too cynical.
It's been planned for a long time. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I know that's a lot. And I can see that. I just think you're giving too much credit to greedy humans, right?
I know, but there's some smart guys that we don't see that could actually remember something or are back to planning these things for years. They got all these think tanks, they got all these guys let's do it.
Pulling the levers. I used to think a little bit of that, but I think they're so disconnected. And
at the end of the day, when the checks get written, the guy who writes the checks, everybody remembers what to do.
They do, but when it all falls apart, it ain't pretty. So anyway, there's lots of, there's so many different bifurcations and possible outcomes in all this. It's going to be interesting. So, for example, here's an interesting thing for the conspiracy people out there. So, and this is a fact. I like facts. So, there's always been that China and Russia are together and they're going to F the world and take over the world. There's that bit. Or some people think China's going to do it themselves, or Russia's going to do it, or America's going to do it. Here's an interesting fact, and you just said it, who writes the check. So, this is not insignificant, and this is happening. This is real news. This happened today. So, Sinopec, who most of you should know, today suspended talks for a major petrochemical investment and gas marketing venture they were meant to do in Russia. Remember all this Silk Road stuff and all this sort of stuff? So Che and crew have obviously realized, we might probably put too much faith in one Vladimir Putin. So these are things that are playing out live as we think. And so all these bifurcations that we don't even know about, and really if you're not in energy, it probably means absolutely nothing to what I'm just telling you. But these are significant events. These are very, very, very significant. Is that enough varies? Little thing. And here's an old saying.
Okay, so next thing, see, with stuff like that is, the thing is, it could change because next month, the U.S. might be after China for its islands or Taiwan or something. Then they're going to be going back this way. So it goes back and forth.
It's all playing out pretty well, as I've been saying. It's going to play out for a long time. But this is significant. You can't just spin around on plans, spin around on things. Anyway, The reality is, there's an old saying. There's an old saying in my neck of the woods in Oceania and Asia, and it goes like this: China is your friend until it isn't. So keep that in mind, people.
One thing is this: I have never to this day met too many people. If some guy wants to write a check for you to do something, that says no.
Well, people can be bored, is what you're saying.
I'm saying is, hey, if China wants the next 3 months from now to come back and invest in those projects, I don't think Putin's going to say no.
It's not Putin saying no, my friend. It's China saying no.
It's that company, but as you well know, China has a lot of influences over what those companies do.
Well, it's a state-run company. This is China making the decision. It's not. Well, exactly. You can bet your bottom line where this. You can bet where this decision came from, mate.
Exactly, but they always make it look like, oh no, they're independent, but we know that.
China's a communist country. They're not independent. Sinopec
and... Oh, but the companies run each other. You know, China plays it off a little bit too.
Hang on, I don't get what I don't get what you're trying to say there.
I'm saying is China could say, well, we're not running that company. Let me talk with them. They'll try to pass the buck around. You know, the Chinese are art of war.
Yeah, you know? But in this situation, they're not trying to hide anything here. I disagree. What I'm saying is, this is a significant event. And there's a lot of significant fence falling over. Don't forget, they're already weakened because of the trade war that went awry, and you got coal through the roof. Now, this is putting more pressure on them, etc., etc. And China was actually trying to do a good thing, believe it or not. They were trying to get more towards a cleaner energy, less coal, and all that sort of stuff, right? So Putin's actions have effects in many different ways. And I guarantee you he didn't expect it to go like this. You know, he expected it probably pretty quick and all that. And he probably sold that to Shea. Who knows? Mate, you and I could be so far off base. You know?
I mean, here's a problem right there. For me, from the looks of it, how this operation went down, I mean, knowing with how the war works and everything, I mean, he didn't send it out there. I think he probably thought the people are not going to put a defense out there. But with all those weapons out there now, I mean, Putin could do what the U.S. does, just razor down the cities and then go take them. I mean, that usually cuts back on casualties and stuff. That's what they did in Iraq. All those countries, they flatten everything. Go look at it. Go look at Mosul. It looks like a parking lot.
Well, I hate to say it, but there's a little bit in between Mosul and Kiev, my friend.
Mosul's one of the oldest places in the world. One of the beautiful architects out there.
We know all that. We know all that. But there's a little bit of difference.
I don't see no difference. I think Mosul was actually a more precious thing. It's been around forever.
Well, I guess if you just look materialistically, perhaps, or architecture, but you're talking about, you know, a much bigger place and all that, and right next door Europe. So the saddest thing with the Middle East is that's a war that's been going on since Adam was a boy, probably literally. And it's never been able to redevelop. And like you said, Syria became a plaything, for want of a better word. It's not the right word, between Russia and false flags, and then ISIS came out of it and all that. But we're not talking about that. I think as I've said right at the start, what's going on in Ukraine and Russia is relevant to that part of the world. And people that aren't from that part of the world or have no roots there or whatever keep trying to compare it to the Middle East or to Asia. It's totally different.
I'm just telling you, that's why he took him so long, because I don't think he wanted to go razor the city down. And now with all his weapons...
I disagree. I think he seriously believed that Ukraine wouldn't put up a fight. He believes his own bullshit, Putin. And he's from the KGB. He's East German. The KGB is hard, callous, all that. But don't forget, everyone was treating him like a rock star. So you treat someone like a rock star, you believe it, right? So he believed he was infallible. You had everyone battering up to him. Everyone from MBS to Trump to all the Western leaders. So, I mean, he's still human at the end of the day. I mean, to me, it's very black and white. And I
just think the way the planning of the war went. I mean, if he thought there was going to be a defense like that, he would have probably started raising more bombing attacks.
I have a very different view on the Russian military than what you do too. Don't forget.
Well, I've seen him work in Syria, and I've seen him how they did things very differently. But all right, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, very different demographics and populations and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. I disagree on all that, but let's not get into that anymore. I think people need
it. Not a problem. It's my thoughts about what is.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, it's very good to hear different opinions and different share and somewhere between our views and everyone else's views, there's probably a bit of truth in it. But as I said, nothing is ever as it seems. So just when you think you got it worked out, history has shown of all the double deals and bad deals, and particularly when war's involved, because war involves the two worst things, greed and fear, right? You know, so and I think there's a lot of, I think the whole lockdown thing around the world also changed a lot of things that a lot of scholars or bureaucrats don't get. It brought a lot of people together that wouldn't normally be together. It taught the lesson of compassion and helping each other out and all this sort of thing. There's so many variables. The more I look into it, I'm like, wow, yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, there's so many variables. So the other thing is, I mean, there's always been fake news. We all know that. You know, particularly with war, the fog of war. But and you made a good point earlier, the so easy to change things on, like the internet, and everyone thinks they're this, and people keyboard warrior. We know that just from stocks. But just there's so many different opinions are swayed, so many easy ways. And it's so easy to camouflage the truth. What is the truth, right? But anyway, we could go on all day. So let's wrap it up. We started off with different things, and there's so many mistruths and truths in so many different things, right? And just like I said, relatives there. We could go all day on about it, but
yeah, not a problem. All right, mate. Have a good weekend, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, everyone. So anyway, we did go on. So if you got any views, we don't. It is Friday, so we thought we'd do something different. So more to do with energy. So we went off on a few tangents. But if you like it. Subscribe if you don't. If you don't. But we would appreciate any comments, and if you like stuff. That's all good. So have a great weekend, El. Thanks, Madabi. Great week, mate.
Thank you. Great week. All right, guys. We stayed on a little bit longer. I don't know if you guys like this. Let us know. Thank you.
Probably hate us even more.